morning and welcome to today's webinar session. My name is Evans Nyamoto, Communications Assistant at Global Alliance to Improve Nutrition. To begin this program, on behalf of Wandieville and Jayne, I welcome all our speakers and guests to this edition of Nutrition Conversations Africa. Nutrition Conversations Africa is an advocacy platform aimed at illuminating African nutritional challenges and opportunities, transformative ideas and game-changing solutions through continuous conversations, call to action, advocacy support, and engagement to curb malnutrition in Africa. We are very excited to be able to have this discussion in the year which has been declared as the Africa Year of Nutrition. Sustainability of food system is a critical aspect of nutrition and food security, and youth engagement is undoubtedly required for sustainable food systems. In our discussion today, we will highlight the role of youth engagement in achieving sustainable food systems. There'll be an opportunity to discuss our questions and engage in discussion during the moderated Q&A session. To begin the program, I am pleased to invite Vera Osei-Bonsu, NCAfrica Ghana Nutrition Champion, to take us through the panel session. Vera.
Thank you, Evans. Thank you so much for the introduction. I was so sorry. As mentioned earlier, in today's session, we'll be discussing building robust youth engagement for sustainable food systems. Joining us are three distinguished panelists. Please continue to put your questions in the Q&A box, and they will be answered accordingly during the course of our discussions. I would like to begin these discussions with Azeez Salawu, Act4Food Act4Change, Nigeria. Before I go into asking Azeez some few questions concerning this topic that NCA is celebrating International Youth Day with, let me take you through the profile or bio of Azeez. Azeez Salawu is a youth in agriculture advocate and climate activist with broad experience in mobilizing the youth for climate action, food and nutrition security, and sustainable development in Nigeria. He is the founder and executive director at Community Action for Food Security, which is CAFS, a registered non-for-profit organization committed to promote a food secure Africa through the provision of efforts that support sustainable agriculture and enhance livelihood. Welcome, Azeez. Welcome to today's discussion.
Yeah, thank you so much, Vera, for having me. Hello, everyone, and it's really exciting to be here. Thank you.
So, Azeez, thank you once more for joining us. So, I would like to ask you some few questions concerning the topic we want to discuss today. So, I would like to start with, what is a sustainable food system? Azeez, can you take us through what a sustainable food system is?
All right, thank you so much. So, when we talk about the food system itself, to start with, it's actually very complex. Talking about, it's actually a complex of activity involving production, processing, transportation, consumption, issues around the food systems, including governance, even the way we actually do a lot of things around food systems. But when we talk about sustainable food systems is actually a food system that is able to, cater for the need of people. Talking about consumers, talking about sustainable science, is it nutritious? Is it affordable? Is it available? So those are the components or things that actually make it a sustainable food system, and that is why we're actually clamoring for that. We're not clamoring for a food system. We are clamoring for a sustainable food system, because when it's actually sustainable, it's actually affordable, it's nutritious, and it's available for everybody to actually consume. And that is what it actually means for it to be a sustainable food system. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Azeez. I think that was brief and it was to the point. So let's move on to Jayne. I would like to introduce Jayne before we ask her some few questions. So as a build up to what Azeez has started so far on our discussions today. So we have with us Jayne Arinze-Egemonye, who is Nutrition Conversations Africa Champion in Nigeria. So let me take you through the profile of Jayne as well before we ask her questions. So Jayne is Jayne currently works with the Scaling Up Nutrition Movement in Nigeria as a monitoring, evaluation, accountability, and learning specialist, supporting food and nutrition programs in Nigeria. She has also worked in community-based programs and related research, and therefore has an ongoing interest in food, nutrition, and gender issues. Between 2018 and 2021, she was the country lead for the Sun Movement Food Fund project. And Jayne has contributed to complex nutrition interventions, including nutrition systems, strengthening, supporting governments with policy making, and strengthening coordination of multi-sectorial nutrition platforms. Jayne is currently a board member of White Ribbon Alliance Nigeria. As a development leader, she also aspires towards achievement of efficient and effective implementation of programs by non-profit organizations. Welcome on board, Jayne.
Thank you, Vera. Hello, everyone. I'm excited to be here.
So, Jayne, to ask you, looking at the explanation that Arinze has given what a food system is, are there any policies guiding the involvement and reinforcement of youth in the food system?
Okay, thank you so much for the question, Vera. I would like to say that youth involvement in the food system has been a global issue. It has always been an international issue. Starting from the MDGs, we had international discussions on the involvement of women and young people in being productive towards the reduction of poverty. So it has always been a discussion, the need to involve young youth in business, especially in agriculture. But I think that there is no clear policy at the moment on how to involve the youth in the agribusiness sector. Although there are pockets of programs and also interventions. For instance, the Youth in Agribusiness was aimed to reduce youth unemployment. But we know that these programs of this nature can be very, very difficult to sustain, because it usually comes like a whole package. So you have to invest in social capital, that is invest in youth organizations, their development, their capabilities. You also have to invest in credit and loans, that is financing, and also private sector. So we see that there is a lot of need for vocational training and education of youth. And sometimes this whole package is not easy to unpack by governments. And so they just start off and stop halfway. But presently, we don't see any policy, straightforward policy that supports youth in agribusiness, also their participation in the food systems at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jayne. You said something that was very profound. This whole package cannot only be unpacked by only the government. So that means that we all have to be on board. So as a result of that, I'll move to Joseph to see how we can promote sustainable food systems among the youth for the future. But before I let him tackle that question, let me take you to the profile of Joseph. So we have with us Joseph Gaithuma. Let me take you through his bio. He's the Nutrition Conversation Africa Champion for Kenya. He's the founder of Photons Kenya, a society known to bring together young nutritionists with the inclusion of nutrition-related programs, including capacity building, mentorship, and knowledge sharing. He's a young nutrition professional with passion for nutrition advocacy and volunteerism. He is engaged in the formation of Sun Youth Network in Kenya and is the communication liaison in Wandieville Consulting, LLC. He has also been actively involved in programs centered around nutrition, food security, and partnership building. Welcome, Joseph.
Thank you very much for having me here.
So, Joseph, how can we promote sustainable food systems among youth for the future?
Well, young people remain to be a key motor of innovation in agriculture and food system sector, and are highly concerned about transforming the agri-food system to be more sustainable. I like what my colleagues have talked about, the complexity of the food system. Though the number of young people involved in the food systems has been declining or decreasing, youth play a significant role, from nutrition to food literacy education to food processing, retailing and distribution. Youth are also in the forefront to build food systems of the future, while also bearing significant risk from climate change. We know there are a lot of issues of climate change which are likely to accelerate and intensify during their lifetimes. In response to these, policies and initiatives to protect and strengthen engagement and employment of the youth in food systems needs to be based on some pillars, which for my case, I believe there are 4 main pillars that needs to be focused in order for young people to take part and to be engaged in food systems. The first pillar is a pillar of human rights, and on human rights, this is including rights to protection, right to non-discrimination, right to participation, right to food, right to education, right to decent work as central principles of an enabling policy environment for youth. The other pillar I would say is the equity consideration. This is particularly important in implementing the redistributive policies needed to build resilience in food systems. The equality pillar reminds us that all redistributive measures need to ensure that every marginalized and resource poor group, this is especially the youth or where the young people are included. Targeting youth in food systems transformation means readdressing imbalances of resources and power between the older and the younger generations, which I would call intergenerational or power sharing. The other pillar I would say is the urgency pillar, and this reminds us that a positive transformation change must recognize youth as active agents or active citizens interested and fully capable to drive urgent needed political and economical renewal. Young people, through both individual and collective actions, that is through groups or coalitions that they form, should also be recognized for their potential as advocates for sustainable consumption and as important actors in political movements for food justice and ecological sustainability. The multiple voice participation and leadership of organized, facilitated, and through legislative measures legitimized. Furthermore, it is again important to recognize the intersectionality of the youth. That is the last pillar I think is very important. That is acknowledging and nurturing their heterogeneity and diversity when planning or implementing any youth engagement and employment programs, initiatives, or policy. In short, this is what I would call nothing for us without us. Governments or other partners should not plan youth activity without involving the youth. Initiative towards sustainable food system transformation should adopt a relational approach, recognizing the intergenerational relations between the young and the old, which also influence the developmental cycle of the agrarian or the urban household in which they all reside. With such an approach, an enabling environment can reconstruct the balance between the young and the old according to the socially constructed understanding of different age groups, because different age groups have different responsibility or expectations. The redistribution of knowledge, resources, and opportunity for youth and innovations and engagement in the development of context-specific employment can not only contribute to creating jobs for the youth, but can also directly support their involvement in the food systems. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Joseph. That was very in-depth. I think you've touched on a lot of things, and it's truly true when we say that youth are the active agents for change in the food systems. So looking at these things, let me come back to Azeez. Azeez, you are with Act4Food Act4Change in Nigeria. What are some of the challenges encountered in increasing the interest and participation of the youth in agriculture, especially the food systems?
Yeah, thank you so much for that question. The challenges are actually enormous, but then from my own school of thought, challenges are actually meant to build you, not to break you. So for us at the campaign actually started last year alongside the UN Food Systems Dialogue and Summit, and it all started like a joke, from two young persons, pitching the campaign to the executive director of GAIN, Lawrence Haddad, and how they were able to help us facilitate it with Food Foundation was actually like a magic, because they actually came in with their expertise and support, and they allowed young people in over 30 countries to actually take lead of the activities. And the challenges especially maybe for myself, I can speak for myself in Nigeria, has been, even when we actually started the engagement along the food systems, UN Food Systems Dialogue, my organization happened to be the second host, or second organization to host the second independent dialogue in Nigeria. And we're like, oh, how do we get the national convener on board? How do we get UN? How do we get a lot of people to actually, because we don't know these people. Oh, we know them, we see them online, but then to move closer to them is actually a challenge. And we're just planning, and I just received a call. Oh, I said, this is this person, and I'm the consultant, the national convener, and the UN has directed the national convener in all countries to actually reach out to people, anybody organizing an independent dialogue. And that was how it all started. She was on a dialogue, on the dialogue, she was there from the beginning to the end. And from then it moved to, oh, okay, is it possible for us to have like a youth leader? Then that was how we get, the engagement. But then if we didn't do that, how is it going to be possible? So I think there's actually a gap. There's a gap between because there's this sense or thinking that young people, should be relegated to the beneficiary position. So when there's an intervention, when there's a planning, when there's an upcoming project, the young people, okay, when we plan everything, we now push them to young people as beneficiary. It shouldn't be like that. And that is why all these program and initiatives are not really sustainable, because there's nothing you can actually do for young people without the inclusion of young people in the process and also in the in the implementation. So all these challenges are actually there. The issue of getting in touch with your policymaker, the issue of even talking to a fellow young person that really sees, oh, agriculture is actually very dirty. You have to be on the field, you call yourself a farmer, you have to do this, you have to do that. So I think we shouldn't dwell much on the challenges. We all know the challenges, and we should now start to converse or dialogue and talk about the solutions, the possible way that young people can actually be included as critical stakeholders when it comes to sustainably sustaining our food system, especially in Nigeria and other African countries, because it's actually related. We actually have been affected in similar ways. So there's actually a need for the government, because I was in a forum in Lagos, and they were saying that, oh, young people, you have to, break the table, you don't need to request for the table and all. But then that is actually not the way to actually do it. And that is why we strongly believe in intergenerational approach. We are willing to learn from the older people, and they should also be willing to tap into our fresh ideas, our innovations, and a lot of things we can actually bring on board to work sustainably and collectively together to achieve a common purpose. Lack of goodwill from our leaders is actually a very big challenge, because a lot of things are actually happening in the ministries, and a lot of people are not really involved. And they can't actually do without us, but we can't actually do without them, because everything has to be on the ceiling or on the pace of an enabling environment. And it's only our policies and a lot of things that can actually help us have an enabling environment. So there is need for us to actually bridge a gap. There's need for us to actually do a lot of reviews or reforms of our policies. We have a lot of policies lying down. The challenge is implementation. How do we get to bring young people on board to actually, come up with solutions, come up with hackathons that can actually help us provide solutions to all these things? These and a lot of numerous things needs to be corrected, because whether we like it or not, we are not going to be young forever. But then we also need to be involved as young people. We don't, all these things, we see it as challenges, but then we don't really allow them to actually weigh us down. We still find our way to reach out. We find our way to discuss and encourage other young people to actually get involved, because when we talk about the food system, it's actually well encompassing. And one strategic thing we're actually doing at Act4Food Act4Change Nigeria is we are trying to actually build a community, like a coalition of young people doing anything that has to do with agriculture. Because we've come to realize that it is not everybody that's going to be an entrepreneur. Some people want to work as a researcher. Some people want to, just do their business. Some people want to work in an organization. Some people are very brilliant and they are looking at, becoming a lecturer or something. So we are looking at identifying all those people and keying them or linking them up to a lot of things they actually need to build their capacity, to get a lot of things they actually need for themselves. And when we know all these things and when we are able to do it, it will really help themselves, it will help the country, and it will help the world at large. The issue of people traveling and all, you are traveling, you are going there to make an impact and come back to your country. But then if there's no enabling environment, if there's no government or leaders that are willing to listen to us, that are willing to help us, reshape or catalyze our ideas, that are willing to work hand in hand with young people to actually make this a reality, we are going to get there, but it might be longer than we actually thought. So, and also, apart from engaging with our fellow young people, it's also very strategic that we work with the teenagers are actually coming on board. And what we actually do with them is to actually just do a sort of mindset change. We are not telling them to become a farmer. We are not telling them, we are just asking them, do you know where your food is coming from? And from there, they pick interest in food. They pick interest in a lot of things happening around food systems. And as they grow, they are able to relate it and they're able to do a lot of things with it, which is going to be very, very sustainable. And when they now become an adult, when they grow higher, they get on, oh, this is what they are talking about. This is what, I have an idea. I can actually do this. And actually, you understand? So the conversation needs to actually be diverse. We have urban youth, we have rural youth. We need to find a way to engage everybody because we are all very, very strategic when it comes to food system transformation. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Azeez. That was in-depth as well. As you rightly said, there must be increasing engagement of the youth in promoting the food systems, but there is also lack of goodwill. The food system, promoting it moves from the national level to the grassroots. So at the national level, we cannot do without the government. So coming back to you, Jayne, what part can the government play in fostering robust youth engagement for sustainable food systems?
Okay, thank you so much, Vera, for the question. We can't really do much if we don't involve the government. And so we need the government as part of the process for improving food systems, not just in Africa, but also globally. So I think, for me, I think like my colleague has mentioned, the need to ensure inclusiveness. We see that policies or country plans are not involving young people in the development and also the implementation. So we need to ensure inclusiveness in terms of involving young people, youth in the development from the one, and not just when you have the policy and then you're now, okay, call the young people together. We need to talk to them. So we need to, work with them from the beginning, from the development to implementation and also evaluation. This is because the food system needs to be inclusive, gender, youth, because this reduces inequity gap, from older people and also who are the development, the policy makers and the young people. And also, again, it makes it easier for these youth to know where their food is coming from, to look at the opportunities in the food system framework in their countries or in their communities, and find ways of getting involved in food system issues. They tend to understand what the issues are, and they can make good decisions in ensuring that they are eating nutritious and healthy foods. So this is very, very important. Inclusiveness is key to ensuring that these food systems are working. Then secondly, also is making agriculture more attractive. So we see young people these days are involved in technology, and we need to make agriculture more attractive. So it's not just going to the farm with your whole cutlass and your boots. but seeing different ways of mechanizing agriculture, different ways of using technology that can inspire young people to get involved in food systems discussions. So we need to make agriculture very attractive. Another point is the need to fund research. Usually we know how poorly research are funded, not just an African thing, but also globally. So less money is put into research, but we find that our young people, a lot of youth are involved in research. They want to know what is going on, how to make things better for themselves, and also for their communities. And so there needs to be research, but research are poorly funded. Sometimes you look at country plans or strategic plans, and you find out that research, there's little or no funding, maybe 1%, if at all, for research. So I think the government needs to do more in terms of putting money aside, funding for research. Young people would want to know how to reduce food waste. So there should be funds for research to fund that, and also dealing with pest control. So there are opportunities for young people, and we think that governments can make policies and these strategic plans more youth-friendly in such a way that youth will find avenues for further discussion and also involvement in the food systems. So I think these are some of the ways government can foster robust youth engagement in sustainable food systems in Africa. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jayne. I'm coming back to you, Joseph. So Joseph, what does it mean to build a robust engagement among youth? I think Jayne said the government must help to build a robust system. So what does it mean to build a robust engagement among youth? And what are the likely factors that are to be considered?
Well, I would say building robust engagement is and should be an intentional partnership between the youth and organizations or partners. And I say intentional because it should be a relationship where none of the parties is being forced or is being coerced to take part, or is being cornered, or is being pushed to the corner when decisions are being made. And again, this is where the young people are involved in all parts of a program or agenda setting and decision making. And I think the problem we've seen in the past is where the youth are only involved in at the end or at the implementation of an agenda or a program, and have not been involved during the setup or during the development of the concept notes or brainstorming of the ideas. But this can only happen by creating an environment where their voices or the voices of the young people can be heard without stigma or judgment. And this engagement should integrate the experiences and ideas of young people into program designing, while also building their skills and strengths, not just bringing in the young people to take in the ideas, but it should also give something back to them by capacity building them, enabling them to know their strong points, enabling them to know their weak points. In an ideal situation, young people, organizations, and the communities should all benefit from such kind of engagement. But there are some factors to be considered during this kind of engagement, and these are what I would call bottlenecks, which sometimes becomes a hindrance point for meaningful or for robust engagement for the young people. And one of them is the experience barrier. You see, it is often assumed that more experience is always better. Whereas in some cases that is true, but that doesn't leave room for young people. The possible solution for this could be to recognize that young people do have variable skills and knowledge, and can make room for different kinds of different kinds and levels of experience. As much as they don't have so many years, they are bringing in something. So aiming to include young people with a range of skills and knowledge in a group, and also increase the diversity of the young people that programs or program implementers are involved with, will bring in different kind of perspective. And this is where we call, like in Kenya, the Sun Youth Network. This is where we are working to call upon young people to stop operating in silos. Operating in silos means I see you go across the country and you find young people with very good ideas, with very good initiatives, but they are acting as one person or as two people without engaging others. So we are calling them up to come in from groups or from coalitions, because this will enable them to brainstorm their ideas and fine-tune their ideas and to help them speak in one voice. Another bottleneck could be young people voices in meetings are mostly limited. You see, it can be intimidating to speak up in a group of adults, especially since young people are often outnumbered in this kind of meetings. So it is important to create an environment of respect that allows their voice to be heard. And some, like when we were forming the Sun Youth Network, is still in the process of being formed. Most or what happened is that the group or the task force was split into two, because again we need the advice of the adults. So half were the adults and half were the youth, because this again enabled or created a safe space for us, the young people, to be able to say or to be able to give in our ideas. This is how we want the Sun Youth Network in Kenya to operate, and this is our ideas. And again, with the advice and the guidance of the adults. There is also a critical gap between the younger and the older generation. The demographic of communities across the world are changing as younger generations are becoming more diverse. This might present, or this again has presented a challenge in enabling inclusivity or meaningful engagement with young people. This year's International Youth Day theme I know you all have interacted with it, was intergenerational solidarity. This sought to create awareness on the need of leveraging the full potential of all generations to ensure that no one is left behind when creating this kind of engagement, because again, different generations come in their own different perspectives, different ideas, and different views. Addressing this intergenerational gap is more I would say necessary to ensure an inclusive and sustainable engagement on the issues regarding food systems. Food systems are complex, and this has been mentioned. And this complexity of the food system, it's a very unique opportunity for everybody to be involved, because the issues of ICT, this is not something that our older generations might be very privy to, but as the young people are very privy to the issues of ICT or technology. So this is something that we can bring in during food processing. But again, access to things like finances and markets, this is something the older generation have good access to. So addressing intergenerational gap and seeing how each generation or each group can be able to address the issues that they are privy to will help to be able to engage, to build a robust engagement among the young people.
Thank you so much, Joseph. Addressing intergenerational gap, I think that is one of the main things. I'll be coming back to you, Jayne. So Joseph raised a lot of concerns, but would like you to also touch on some of the concerns that would be addressable by a sustainable food system. As we are talking about food systems, what concerns should be addressable?
Okay, thank you so much. I think the major concern that will be addressed is ownership. So we find that it's hard to say, in terms of food, making sure there's nutritious food on the table, we want that buy-in from all stakeholders. We want them to feel confident that what they are doing is contributing to nutritious food on the table. So number one for me is ownership, owning, the farmers, the distributors, the producers, everybody on the food, the value chain, food system value chain is owning the system. So that's one key thing for me. Another is the increased income for smallholder farmers. So we see that there's increased in productivity and also income. This will help them take care of their families and also provide nutritious food for their families. Another point is increasing youth employment. Like Joseph and Azeez have mentioned, there is need to make sure that these young people are productive. And it's one thing to to keep them busy. It's another thing for them to be productive, earning income for themselves and making themselves useful in the food system. So I think that a major concern that it seeks to address is youth employment, keeping them busy and also productive, and they are contributing to the country's economy. Another point is reducing prices of nutritious foods. So when we see a sustainable food system, we see that there's available food in the market for people to access. We also see that there's also diversity. And also, again, the cost of food prices comes down. Currently, all over the world and in our various countries in Africa, we're seeing increased food prices. This is because there are issues with the food systems at the moment. And so for the food system to be sustainable, we'll see reduction in food prices. And also, we'll also see increased availability and accessibility of nutritious foods on our tables. So these things are connected. The food price, the reduction in food prices, and also availability and accessibility. If food prices are affordable, then would also access food and also diverse foods for us and our families to eat. Then also, if there are stresses or conflict, like we're just still trying to recover from the pandemic, a sustainable food system would sort of provide a cushion in response to the shock or the conflict. So we can't do without a sustainable food system. For us to be able to ensure nutrition security and food security, we need a food system that works for us, that works for our communities, that works for our countries. And we need everybody to own the process. If wherever you are on the value chain, you know what you're bringing to the table, and you sort of support improvement in that area, and also support the growth in that area. So I think these are some of the concerns that will be addressed when we have a sustainable food system in our countries and also in our continent. Thank you so much, Vera.
Thank you so much, Jane. Please do not forget to put your questions in the Q&A boxes, and it will be accordingly addressed because we have a session for that. So we are expecting your questions to be in the Q&A box. So coming back to Azeez. So Azeez, we've been talking a lot about engaging the youth in the food system and all. But from your experience in working with Act4Food Act4Change, do you think the youth want to be involved in issues related to food systems at all? Do they want to be involved?
Well, thank you so much, Vera. For me, the answer is yes. Young people are really willing to get involved in food systems transformation in Nigeria, simply because when we started the dialogue, this is just a case study. When we started the dialogue last year, after hosting the second dialogue, I think Sahel Consulting hosted the first independent dialogue. A lot of young people reached out that, oh, okay, how were you able to do it? This and that. And they not only curated independent dialogue, they were able to strategically come up with topics that they are actually very passionate about. Topics around city, around employment, around climate change. A lot of topics came on board, and all of them were actually very, very active, during the discussion, up to they are following up with the main summit itself in New York last year. And as it was happening in Nigeria, it's happening in every other part of Africa and every other part of the world. So a lot of young people are really interested, but then there is need for enabling environments for young people to actually thrive. And here in Nigeria, I think we actually need to be very, very strategic because of the kind of leaders we need to be very, very prepared to actually take over and to work together, because they are not willing to bring young people on board. maybe just for few people that have exposure, have traveled far and wide, and feel that it's an intergenerational issue and it should be solved with intergenerational approach. Because it's actually, if you go to our ministries, if you are not, the first thing they think when they see young people is, oh, we don't have funds, we can't help you. But it should go past beyond all those things, because we are seeing them as collaborators. We are seeing them, we are looking at, oh, is there a way we can actually bring, because we all know from my own experience, I get to understand that even the international organizations, they prefer to work directly with the ministries. So if you are not willing to work with young people, how do we then say, okay, yes, we're actually willing to do this? Maybe, for example, with FAO will want you to route it, or they want to route their maybe supports, in fact, of technical support. They want to route it through the Ministry of Agriculture. But then the Ministry of Agriculture is not willing to bring, or it's not willing to listen to young people, and it's not actually it's not building a positive result. One of the deputy directors we met in Lagos during the work, the Southwest implementation workshop for the food systems implementation in Nigeria. She was talking about a lot of initiatives that they started and all, and it didn't work and all. I told Ma, do you know why that thing did not work? Because you actually planned for young people without their involvement in the planning, and that was the only reason why it didn't work. We submitted letter of controversy to the Honorable Minister. He told the Director of Extension to actually give us an audience because of his busy schedule. We got the Director of Extension. He directed us to the Deputy Director in charge of youth and gender. We got there, and the man said he was trying to fill us and get irons. I told him, sir, we are not here for any. We are just here to collaborate with the Ministry of Agriculture. We just want to show that we are planning an event. We already have our implementation plan. We have our concept. We have everything. We just want Ministry of Agriculture to actually come on board. And the man was like, "Oh, you didn't get the memo that you need to go back to the ministry to find out where the letter is actually coming from," but they didn't get anything at all. So he didn't even give us any audience, and that was actually very, very painful. And when I was talking to the deputy director, he said, "Oh, are you serious? Oh, sorry about that," and all. The system is collapsed. And they know that it is only young people that can act, because as young people, we are willing to name and shame. We are willing to ask for everything that is happening. We are willing to follow up with everything they are doing. And they feel that, oh, we are not doing the right thing. And if these young people come on board, they have social media, they have Twitter, they are able to do and undo. And that's just their fear. But then we need to make this thing work, because a lot of things happening in Nigeria, it has to do with the policy. And when we talk about the policy, it's not the president, it's the ministry. Talking about the ministry, we are talking about the national ministry, the local and the state ministry. Everybody must take charge. They must be willing to do the right thing to make all these things work. Without that, we'll just be doing what we are doing, and we'll just keep, conversing and doing all. Even when young people bring out initiatives, they tend to kill it, because they feel that, oh, these people have come again. They are willing to, do this and do that. So, but then, and that is why I said we need to be very prepared, because for us to actually achieve something tangible, we need to strategically pull a lot of stunts. We need to work together, even as young people. We need to equip ourselves with a lot of knowledge. We need to identify a particular sector in the agricultural value chain we are very good at, so that when there's conversation and when there's interaction, I'll be able to say, yes, we have someone in the research. Yes, we have someone doing commodity exchange. Yes, we have someone in the nutrition. And all of those things, we are able to flush all those people out. And we won't actually flush them out. We'll make them understand that we are critical stakeholders. We are partners in progress. And they need to see us like that. And that is what we are talking about when it comes to an intergenerational approach. A lot of things are actually changing. When COVID came, we didn't know it was going to come. It has changed a whole lot of things around the food system, and it's affecting everybody. And all these people, they still go about with the old ways of doing things, whereas there's a lot of new research, research that can actually help us, just repackage ourselves to actually adapt to a lot of things happening. But then it will still be the same argument. No, no, no. So it's actually very painful. But then young people are willing to engage around the food systems. We are willing to discuss. We are willing to take action. And you can actually confirm with me, a lot of young people are doing fantastic things across the agricultural value chain. But then there's need for us to actually get more enabling environments to thrive, for all these things we're actually doing to get to see the light of the day. From there, a lot of things will start changing, because when we talk about food, it's what binds us together. Food is culture, it's life, it's what connects everybody together. And we really can, and that is the best way we can actually connect. Because with food, I can actually get a banker on board, I can get a shoemaker on board, I can get a plumber on board, because that is what connects us together. And we are talking about nutritious food, we are talking about it to be available, to be affordable. We need to come and work hand in hand together. A lot of crises are actually there, talking about the herders and farmers crisis. The kidnappers issue is actually very serious. And that is what is causing this rural-urban migration. All these things, we need to work together with the local stakeholders, local government authorities, with the local leaders in the church and mosque. We need to get the message down to the way they can actually understand. Is this going to be translation? Is it going to be making them understand? Is it going to be using their medium, talking about their local radios, to actually get this message across to them? A lot of things are happening. A lot of people need help, especially when we talk about rural farmers. They really need our help. And a lot of things need to be done for us to sustain our food systems. And if we don't act now, we are looking at engage. We are looking at 2030 SDG goals. What is going to happen? It's still going to be the same thing. I didn't know about the MDGs. I just knew that I saw a lot of designs, this MDGs project and all. I got to know about the SDGs, and I've been preaching it since 2016, right from my NYSC period up till now. And a lot of things are actually happening. But then we can have other people key into different goals. It would really help us work together to attain, a very, very tangible solution to transforming our food systems. And food system is actually very critical to every sector, every economy. We can't actually do without transforming our food systems, and all stakeholders must collectively work together to achieve a common purpose. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Azeez, for that bold and on-point delivery. You said rightly that the youth is willing to work against all odds to make an impact. All that we need to do is the encouragement and the acceptance, especially from the government sector and the ministries. So I'm back to you, Joseph. Joseph, how can we capture the attention of the youth to topics like the agri-nutrition sector? We've been talking about youth engagement. How can we capture their attention?
Well, one of my colleagues talked about how to make the agri-food sector or food systems attractive. But we all know that working in the land or working in the farms is highly unpopular among the young people, because it is often associated with hard physical work, and it is true there are low wages and uncertainty and dirtiness, because when people are working in the farm, there's a lot of dust and that. And again, the other issue is rural areas where these farms or factory or industry are mostly located. They lack the facilities that are offered in urban areas. The food system value chain has to transform. That's true, and that is a fact. It has to transform and become a more youth-friendly and stimulating environment. In the recent past in Kenya, in the continent, or even just in the world, we have noted a number of organizations and companies that are trying to make food system activity more attractive to youth and remove the obstacles of the environment. And some of the things they are doing is like one, enabling access to knowledge, information, and education. One of the key issues why young people are struggling is because they lack the required practical skills. And FAO, that is Food and Agriculture Organization, the UN and some partners, in the recent past, they have done some work on how to integrate traditional and intergenerational knowledge and the use of new technologies to develop knowledge, skills, and talent of youth to further food security and nutrition. Such kind of initiatives, if well implemented and well accepted within our communities and within the continent in Africa, will streamline the skills of the young people and will help coach them in reaching their ambitions. Access to information is a very key aspect in improving the skills of the young people, but also to make the agri-food sector more attractive, this information has to reach where the young people are. Information such as access to information such as the social media or ICT, this can demonstrate agriculture to young people as a modern and profitable ventures, and organizations are following. Several organizations that have started way of living, such as sharing information through social media about farming businesses through social media. Like if you go right now to Instagram or WhatsApp status or even in Twitter, you see a number of organizations that are involved in agri-nutrition sector. They are sharing their stories. They are sharing case study. They are sharing their stories. They are sharing life experiences on how young people have taken up this kind of initiatives. This has improved the skills of the young farmer, where they learn from their peers, which is called peer-to-peer learning. We also have some blogs, such as there are two blogs that I know. One is called Your Bloko, and another one is called Makuli Mayang. I'm not sure which country they are based on, but these blogs are where young people are being taught how to exchange knowledge with each other. Again, peer-to-peer learning. So access to knowledge, information, and education can improve the skills of the youth along the value chain, and it can motivate the youth to take lead in innovation once they see that their peers have already started, are already taking part or are already taken that initiative. Another key issue is access to land. There's a very big constraint for youth involvement in agriculture because agricultural agri-nutrition sector have been dominated by elderly people. Elites and foreign investors own most of the arable land. At the community level, elders prevent young people from acquiring sufficient land to start farms and earn a decent living from farming. There is an example of an initiative called Slow Food Network in South Africa. This is where grassroots initiatives for youth in the Slow Food Network in South Africa. It has worked to remove cultural barriers where youth are engaging at the local level by building networks and organizing events themselves. So what this Slow Food Network has done is it has brought together young people in South Africa. It has helped them to be able to overcome cultural barriers of access to land, access to arable land, and just by engaging the authorities in South Africa and engaging the elders in South Africa, so that young people can have access to this land and can be able to take part in those kind of initiatives. And again, in Ethiopia, there is an NGO called Relief Strategy of Tigray. They have had a project which has been very successful, where around 360 landless youths, which I'm aware of so far, have received a total of around 90 hectares of land in one of their districts. This has empowered the young people to receive land ownership certificate from village administration. The results are multiple, as these young people are now receiving income through agri-nutrition activities. See, these initiatives highlight that access to land remains a prerequisite for young people to strengthen their position and to generate a higher income. Again, access to financial services. The biggest limited access to formal sector finance, both for investment and for working capital, working capital needs, is a great constraint for young people other than the older entrepreneurs, because the young people have less assets and have less access to informal finances. Research done again by the FAO found that both developing and developed countries, most financial support providers offer few saving and insurance services for youth, and focus is more on credit. Instead of helping the young people save for future investment, they want to give young people credit where they're going to earn more than how it's going to benefit the young people, despite the fact that saving remains extremely important for these young people. There is a platform again in Uganda. I'm giving examples because I think this is one of the best way to help us young people to see what is being done in our continent. In Uganda, there's a digital platform for financial inclusion. It's called Esibuko. This is an example of a young social enterprise, which has now become a profitable company that creates innovative digital solutions to make financial services easily accessible to unbankable and underserved people, more so the youths, because most youths, again, do not have bank accounts because they don't have money to go and put into the banks. The last thing is access to markets, because again, I believe access to market is another issue that should need to be addressed in order to make agri-nutrition fields or system more attractive to the young people. It has been found out that youth participation throughout the value chain is vital for the growth of agriculture-based economies, most so African countries, because most African countries are sustained by economical activities. But the current market structures are not favorable for the young people. Most initiatives are exploring the opportunities of improving the participation of young along the value chain and in business-oriented strategy. And again, we have a good example with the Niger Delta, the IFAD supported community-based natural resource management program, where they have fostered a new category of entrepreneur mentor called the N-Agripreneur. These N-Agripreneurs are dynamic university graduates, very young university graduates who have been mapped and seen that they are running medium-scale enterprises, a different strategy of food value chains. Their role is to promote urban-rural linkages by acting as intermediaries between small-scale market-oriented farmers and large-scale agro-industries and wholesalers, so as to create or to enable that access to market. These agripreneurs deliver business development services to producers, especially young people. This again is an issue of peer-to-peer learning, who are interested in agro-based activities such as farming as a business, small-scale processing, input supply, and marketing. Because the food system chain is complex, and there are a lot of processes that need to take place from the farm to the table, or farm to table, all that value chain. The result has revealed more interconnected, stable, and prosperous communities and local food systems, as well as jobs for mostly the young entrepreneurs. So connecting farmers to producers is key. And ICT, and again, this is where I like stressing so much. ICT and technology, this is one of the best places where young people can come in. In Kenya, in my country, we have an example of, it's called M-Farm. This is an example of a digital service that provides up-to-date market prices through a text message that is sent directly to the farmers. This has given the opportunity to connect farmers and buyers and in their community to be able to sell their produce. So what this does is, as the young people, you can be able to, if you have a product you're farming, you have a food product you want to sell, you go to M-Farm, you're able to see the different price ranges and see where you can get the most value for your product or for your money. So there are so many issues how we can make a nutrition system more attractive to you, but I think to cap it all is to enable the young people have access to finances, have access to market, have access to land, and use of leveraging the importance of technology or ICT to see how they can get the value of whatever they want to sell or to bring out to their communities. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Joseph, for these practical examples and links. We would like to say a big thank you to all our panelists for their insights and perspectives as well. I will let Andre take over from here as we transition into the Q&A session. Thank you all for being with us and our panelists. Now we move to the Q&A.
Thanks to the panelists for the insight and impactful conversation. Leading global youth engagement for the sustainable food system. We move into the question and answer session now. The first question is from Valence Nigaba from Rwanda. He's addressing his question to Mr. Joseph, where he's asking about the pillars that related to the pillar that Joseph talked about. You want to know, to rate the main three pillars, you may think they may strengthen or even enforced to ensure this food system we're dreaming about is achieved and sustainable? Mr. Joseph, can you go ahead to answer this question from Valence?
So I believe she is referring to the 4 pillars that I mentioned, the pillar of human right, equity, agency, and recognition. So what I meant, like now, if I can use an example of the human rights pillar, like the right to food, the right to decent work, and I would stress more the right to decent work. As I've said, working in the farm or agri-nutrition sector does not seem very appealing to the young people because of how the kind of the work that is input there. And I will use an example. If you look at how our food system processes in Africa are, if you compare them to most of the developed countries, and I will give an example of Switzerland, they are very different. Why? Because in most of those countries, they have really empowered and they have really stressed on the issue of decent work. It doesn't matter whether you are working a white-collar job or you're working on a farm, but they have stressed the importance of decent working environment. So the pillar of human rights, the issue of decent work. This is where again we bring in the issue of policy making, where the young people need to be involved when it comes to making these policies. I will use an example here in Kenya. We have a number of policies that address the issues of involvement of youth when it comes to nutrition. We have a youth policy of engaging young people in nutrition that stresses how the young people can be engaged of what the young people need. We have the Sun Youth Network that is coming up, and again we have a number of strategies that have been developed in Kenya. And what I've noted in them is they are stressing on the issue of decent work environment, because if you don't have a decent work environment for engaging young people, most likely they will not get involved, no matter how much you want to engage them in this kind of processes. But again, as I say, the food system has a lot of processes along its value chain. So it's not just about working in the farm. The other issues of processing, value addition, those are other things that young people can focus on, because now the issue of value addition, most of this happens in the factories, which again, if you compare the kind of working environment in those areas, it's very different from the kind of working environment in the farms. On the issue of recognition, what I meant on recognition is and hearing or paying attention to what the young people are saying, legitimizing their voice, recognizing their voice, and paying attention to their presence whenever policies or whenever decisions are being made. So this is another very key pillar, because what I've realized, and I've been in a number of meetings where the young people have been invited to meetings, but you're given a back seat. You are told to sit at the seats at the back corner, so that what I would call just for PR purposes, but you're not asked about your views. So the main thing of recognition is have your views been captured and encompassed in the final decision or whatever is being made. On the issue of agency, it's about young people. It was about the multiple voices, participation, and leadership of young people in sustainable food system, because allowing young people to take leadership positions. Again, this is another key issue of pulling in young people to come in and take part. Like in again, I'm going to use a Sun Youth Network. The leadership in the Sun Youth Network is the young people. And the importance of that, what I've seen, yes, we have succeeded in pulling in other youth-led organizations because we have been the leader of this kind of a process. The service where I've been again in a number of places where youth activities, the leaders are our elders. So the success of that kind of initiative in bringing in young people sometimes becomes a problem, because they will see a hindrance of them trying to actualize what they have or what they are planning. So I hope I've answered her question.
Thank you, Mr. Joseph. The second question goes to Mr. Azeez, if I can pronounce the name well, which is asking would like to know if the panelists are aware of any programs that seek to leverage the Africa continental free trade, specifically the movement of goods across the continent, to make nutritious foods more accessible to those who need it across the continent. The attendant believes this can be done by leveraging the private sector with real government involvement. If you have the information about this system, you can answer this question from Ibeuchi. Mr. Azeez, it's your time to have the question and give the answer to it.
All right, thank you so much, Andre. So around the African Continental Free Trade Zone area, a lot of discussions have been ongoing, and I don't know the country you are from, but maybe for Nigeria, I know that they are still really working on how to actually launch the engagements officially in Nigeria. The good thing is that they've been able to come together to form a committee, across different stakeholders. But then the bad thing is that young people and probably women and some farmers group are not represented. Yeah, it's actually very sad. But then what I can advise is that if you are the country, depending on the country you are, it's actually very important and strategic for you to prepare for the opportunities that would come out of the African Continental Free Trade area. So what you can actually do is to actually, if you're in Nigeria, we can actually link up to see how we can start the conversation, because I could remember during the COVID, we were able to do a short survey in Africa, in West Africa, around young people doing one or two things in agriculture and how they can actually leverage on that initiative to get their goods across from one place to the other. But then, so if you can actually do that, if you're in Nigeria, we can actually link up, we can discuss on the modalities, we can now start engaging with the authority in charge, because I am aware that some of the ministries, departments and agencies are together, and some private sector group are with them, and some maybe research institutes are with them, and they've been meeting and they've been having some meetings. But then, like I said, everything still boils down to goodwill. So if there's no goodwill attached to anything they are doing, it will still be they discussing and talking around a lot of things. But I think as young people, we can actually also get involved by reaching out to them to know what is the stage and how can we also be part of it, because that is when the conversation or the engagement can really have, a very good shape. Because without the young people, it will still, because we will still be the one to help drive the process. We'll still be the one to help with advocacy and some other awareness around, you can actually do this. Do you know you can do this? You can do that. And that is how we can actually work together to actually leverage on that. If not, to just be for probably the big or the top guys in the business that actually knows or have a connection in the presidency or in the Ministry of Agri or at the National Nigerian Export Promotion Council and some other agencies that has to do with all these things. So we can actually start something around it. We can start to see how we can actually get engaged, get involved with it in our own little way. And you might be surprised that a lot of things but I can actually say, I can tell that a lot of things are still have not really started in Nigeria, but then some backdoor activities are actually ongoing. And as young people, I think we can start conversation around it, identifying the people we can actually start engaging to see how we can actually also be part of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Azeez. Thank you for the answer to the question. Mrs. Jayne, do you have any additional information to this question? Is asking about the the program for the leverage Africa free trade that can help the access of nutritious foods more accessible, making them more accessible across the continent to those who need it. You have any additional information to this question?
Yes, I think Azeez has been quite detailed on Nigeria's situation in the Africa continental free trade issue. But I would like to note that this is an opportunity for countries in the continent. Politicians may try to make this difficult in actualizing this program. This is because of the increased insecurity in the regions across the borders in some of the countries. So they will see this as an opportunity to increase insecurity and also to take away jobs from one country to the other. So I think that as stakeholders, we should also look at the threats we may have in putting this on the table of policymakers to take a decision on. But overall, I see this an opportunity for to reduce hunger and malnutrition in the region, and also to encourage food security in our country. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jayne. So thanks to all the panelists. I think I would like to conclude to the question and answer session. I see no more questions. I would like to conclude for the session of question and answer. Thank you.
Thanks, Andre. Again, on behalf of NCAfrica, we thank the panelists and participants for joining the engaging session today. The ideas discussed will be carried forward by stakeholders in the nutrition space, and we hope that this is the beginning of continuous conversations, call to action involving solutions and strategies to the issues of food security in Africa. Thanks again, and do enjoy the rest of your day.